I have tried to explain you again what kind of difference we see, maybe in the political field, maybe in the economical field, from the perception side. And it was very thrilling this morning. Also now the discussion and see between more Democrats and more Republicans and the European point of view. I will try to give you a perception about a South view. Maybe it's different. As you know, Brazil has elected the first woman, and we had 8 years of a government who, when he begins, we were afraid from the entrepreneurship that he would get into more social situation and run over the budgets. But we were positively surprised. And I participate in this government for 2 years, and it was very seriously to have absolutely in mind that inflation no more. Because, as Lozada told also, when you get in the inflation and you get out, you know what kind of value you get for your society and for your politics. So with this new election, the first signal that we become is that Mrs. Dilma Rousseff has nominated three ministers in the front, and was economic ministers. One, she leaves. She confirmed the financial side, and in the Brazil Fed, she put a vice president, a very experienced person, and in the planning side, who has a budget in his hand, a woman who has a tough experience about all the investment plans inside in the government. So the first signal that they did is we will keep a strong hand over costs. That is a first signal that's important. The second signal will be that she has to put some politicians in other ministries, and of course, they wish to have more expenditure. But if this first moment is we have a strong hand, they will have an advice to be disciplined. Looking at that, the situation in Brazil also of the election is a very typical election of Latin America. Latin America has mostly democracies and mostly very well controlled inflation rates and have average of GDP increase for more or less between 3 to 5% in a steady form. So Latin America countries don't want to get back to inflation. They don't want to go back to uncontrolled disband. But looking to the international situation, looking to the average what happens in the moment, I will share with you some comments about what is the perception. From the Brazil point of view, we had an evaluation of the exchange rate. We have a floating, and that was hardly acquired about 8 to 10 years. And this floating, with a high interest rate that we have, attract a lot of capital. One is a long-term capital that's highly welcome, and another one is a short capital to use the average about the interest rates. Second one is what Tom said in this morning. We are maybe in a currency war. I don't think that we are in the economic war. We are in an economic competition, as we everywhere term. But I suppose we are in a currency war, yes. Only to give you a figure about in this year what happens in Brazil, 2010, we have an evaluation from the real, that's a Brazilian currency, to the yuan in 40%, 40%. And to the dollar, more or less 20%. So, when I see the comment of Janet and said, well, this $600 billion that we put in, maybe that could be good for you because you have a contribution for your domination of your inflation. I would say thank you very much, but that's a Greek present that we don't want. Because that will devaluate the dollar more and more, and what is the effect about that? Brazil is growing, and this year more or less 7%, maybe in the next year 4.5%. The effect in reality is that we begin to have a deindustrialization in the country. I'm on the board of Embraer. It's one of the technology advanced company. We know what we are doing. We know what we have to do. And we have invested in China. We are investing in the US. We are investing in Europe. And the point is that with this currency situation, a country like Brazil or others can hold on 1 year, maybe 2, but not 3 or 4 years. So reactions will happen, and that is worst. And I understand the discussion that Janet put here, because 2/3 of her problem is a national problem. 1/3 maybe is an international problem, because the dollar is an exchange currency that makes a huge interference from the international side. So what could be the reaction from the political point of view? It could be only to foresee in a negotiation form. And that was a G20. But you see that the G20 situation has made commitments that are only more verbal commitments. They allow certain countries to do something to have a certain influence on the currency, but that will not be enough. So the perspective to get in the exchange rate some influence will be very high. And that's not good. It's not good for Brazil. It's not good for the other countries. It's not good for the dollar, and so on. And when I read yesterday the business statement of the CED, they put a phrase that I find fantastic, and I will read it. And as the world's largest debtor nation, we are quickly losing credibility on the world stage and our ability to set standards of behavior for the community of nations. I think exactly that a point where you are bringing up an issue that's very, very important for the US and for the other nations. I think the discussion for the solutions inside that you are bringing up is very important. What I heard in these days is that the solution, yes, we know, but maybe, and it's difficult, and we have to consider, and so on. So it will be longer. And when I see the European, it's like Gulliver. He's a giant, but he's delayed on a huge, thin issues, and he can't move. For 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, Edward, the European Union were discussing the two velocity of growth. The velocity of the growth of Germany, France, and UK, and the other countries who will grow less. That wasn't accepted. They wish to grow everybody in the same phase. What happens now? You have two velocities, because economy reality overpass the political wishes. So that's a reality. And now I see it from the south side. What is the possibility, what we foresee, that countries like US, Japan, and also the European Union could make some difference in the international field, is to bring up a different perspective also for the subsidies. I didn't see anybody talks about subsidies in the last 2 days. You have huge subsidies in US in the sense of agriculture. And that costs you a lot of money. And you have subsidies in the European Union. 1 billion euros per day you are paying for your agriculture issues. Why? Why in this crisis? You don't need to do it. You can buy it cheaper. And from the political point of view, 3% only of the GDP is about agriculture in the European Union, and only 1% of the employees are in the agriculture. So from the political damage inside, it would be okay. They move a lot, but it's not a thing that you can manage. On the other hand, the South is bringing more and more and more competitiveness in these issues, in the food side, in the energy side, and in the commodity side. So the prices will get high in the moment, but the costs will be lower and lower. So the competitiveness of the US, of Japan, or European side, in that sense, will be very difficult. And on the other side, our competitiveness with a high raising exchange rate will go back in the sense of industrialization areas. So that's a difficulty that we have foreseen. We don't know what are the best solutions because, as Rose said today, we have a lot of solutions that are bad. So I hope so that they don't catch another one that's worst, because it could be the fourth issue that nobody knows, and but after 1 year, 2 years, it would be very bad. So the scenarios that I see in the moment is, unfortunately, the velocity of the change are too low. Unfortunately, I see that the deviation of economies are too high. And if you see what Brazil are importing now, it's incredible, because from China is now our greatest partner for the exports and in the imports too. And a lot of American companies or European companies are bringing their products from China and bringing the brand of their good products into the market. So it's not only the Chinese industrial products that are reaching Brazil, but also the international movement. And that's a deviation of production. Because if General Electric, General Motors, or others are bringing it from China, you have increasing of employees in China and not in Europe or in the US. And how long you will do that? It's good for China? Yes, for sure. But China has a undervaluation of the currency in a performance that we can't accept it for long term. So how we deal with that? And who are the instruments to do that? So we have to foresee that, and I'm very pleased that the CED is putting this issue so very clear and strong. And I hope that we from Latin America, who are very faced to have a solid and sustainable development, could cooperate more and more and more with entrepreneurship, because I think here's a rationality, and it's a social competence also. What I see yesterday night, what the major awards were bringing over, because social responsibility is there. And that's an issue that in Latin America, it's a value. The social insertion is a value that you can't keep it more outside of your strategy thoughts, as well as the sustainability also with the environmental issue. Thank you very much.